Okay, so I was definitely a lot more shaykh to this avoda than the avoda beforehand. I had two examples early in the week which I wanted to share, which were interesting. I was at a shiva. Again, what were we talking about? We're talking about the fact that we have to realize that there is a lot of chachma inside of us, and lomi mikol adam could be to draw on ourselves, not just others, which I thought was kind of a breakaway, breakthrough way of looking at it. And then we had the Rabbi Rucham, very deep, that the chachma is really inside of you, chayil and natav, etc. And then what we had said last week, that that's like a very, very high bar and not attainable, kind of. And we spoke all about dealing with ideas that are way above us and coming back to them, etc. But then what we did last week, we said, okay, that's true, but there's still something called drawing on your own chachma that you do know, not just on the well springs that are inside of you, your neshama or whatever, your kloyos, but your makoros and the way you've thought about things. So I thought about that twice early in the week. I had examples which I thought were fit to share. Was that I went to Shiva, as I mentioned. So then, when you go to Shiva and you're wondering, like, what's it all mean? What's our avoda, etc. So right then, one could see themselves as, hey, I've learned about this topic. I have something to say. I have something to share. I do know about this, or I have no idea what I'm doing in a Shiva. That would be the thing. Now, if you, it could be you know nothing about a shiva, that could be. But the point is, before assuming you know nothing and think you have to like quickly ask someone if you had a Talmud Chacham close by or your computer program, whatever. Before doing that, you ask yourself, "What do I know about this?" The other example was even a little bit more dramatic, which was interesting. I'll see what everybody says. That when I was in America, an old Talmud reached out to me about a very, very sensitive and important Chonah question about switching his kid from school, etc. And I said what I said. And they contacted me again. He says, "What do you think about us going for a second opinion?" Which I, of course, said, "Of course, you would go for a second opinion." Kind of, he said it in a nice way, but it was, I said, "Of course." So I was wondering that maybe like that, of course, was a mistake in a certain way. I mean, obviously, it's good for him to get a second opinion, and I'm not there to, I'm not the posik, definitely in Yanichin Chabanim, although I've had seven children, but I don't consider myself an expert on the topic, and why not? But here's the sensitive point that I'm bringing up is that it could be my perspective should be that, well, I really thought about it a lot and I had a lot of clarity about your question, and I think I'm really right. It would be a mistake to go confuse yourself. That's the so here's the point. I think at the end of the day, I would probably tell someone still go get a second opinion, but the readiness that I said it by could be because I'm not seeing myself enough and call kedisa, each person at his own level as the thing. Like think a question comes about your kids. So the natural thing is, oh, let's go ask a chinuch habanim expert, right? Let me ask my wife. Let me ask a chinuch habanim expert. Let me go ask the rabbi in the shul. Wait. Maybe you know. Maybe you have the answer inside of you, and don't go running. So it's an interesting thing. It'll be interesting with where we're going to take the avoda to in a second. But I think that's the balance over here is for us, perceive yourselves as knowing stuff that you know. It's obviously so easy, even as I say it, to say like, okay, but what if I don't know? If you don't know, you don't know. What if it's my gaiva? Then of course not. What if it's the fact that I blow up what I know and I want to see myself as an expert? I think I'm a know-it-all. Then not. Right? That obviously, if there's a bad midah which is pushing you to think you know more than you know, obviously you have to quiet that bad midah. The nakuda here is that, but sometimes we undersell ourselves as knowing. I remember I definitely had this Maisa with my Rabbi Blochman was really a Chaim Berliner and a Slobodka type, and I would say to him sometimes like I know nothing. He's like, don't say that, like you don't know you don't know nothing. He wasn't being machazik. He was like you're a chashubacher. When I was a bacher still, I was like I remember exactly how he said it, but Rabbi Blochman gave me a belief in myself. By the way, that's the point, kind of, is like that the sense this balance, the correct balance between humility, knowing humility, honesty, and a sense when you do know that you do know. Yeah, you get an Aaron. It's and we can be faulty sometimes when someone comes to me for advice. So if my attitude always is that I don't know anything, let me ask Rabbi Yaakov, so then I'm doing a disservice to people who I could answer questions to that I could. Now, if I think I know everything and give people bad eitzah, I'm doing a tremendous disservice. But the person who gives no eitzah, it's reminiscent of what Chazal say. Someone, I forget the lashon pasuk. Rabim cholam hipila vatzum kol havarugeh. I think that's the pasuk, right? That someone who's not magil lahora is more. If you haven't reached halachic knowledge and you give psak halacha, you're bad. And if you've reached halachic knowledge and you don't give it, you're also bad. So now maybe the people listening are saying, well, we're not posting, think you're not. But if it's the questions in your work or in your chinuch habanim or with your wife, a wife is looking to someone for eitzah. So if a guy's going to say, "Oh, I know nothing," I know. Let's go ask the Rav. I know nothing. Let's go ask ChatGPT. I know nothing. That's not good, right? Students, you have students that are looking to you. Children are looking for you. Children are looking to parents. Wives are looking to husbands. Talmidim are looking to Rabbeim. So it's not right to always say you know nothing. It's not right. Yeah. And yourself, let's go back to that. You need to know sometimes how to do something. We're just learning Masil Sharman that says how a person needs to have tachbulas for the Yetzer Hara, what to do. I don't know what a tachbul is. I know nothing. I can't deal with my own problem. Let me deal with my therapist, my Rav, my posting, my Rebbe. No, you can't ask every question. Okay, so that's the point that we were saying last time. That part of the bonus that came into like kacha. Part of the Loma Mikol Adam is to know yourself. And it's a cool thing. Understand there are a lot of topics you know, a lot of topics you have a sense of truth about, a lot of topics that you can't answer about. And don't run always to ask someone else, to learn something else, and not draw from your own insight. Okay? I think that's a very, very good point. And again, the balance is difficult because a person can blow himself up too much. I give you an example. My Rabbi Yaakov told me one time, people used to ask, he said to me, people used to ask me questions, and I would say, that's a question for an Adam Gadol. And now often I think I can answer them. Believe me, he was not saying that he's an Adam Gadol. He just meant that at a certain point, like at a certain point in his career of answering, it was like, oh, that's not a question for me. That's for an Adam Gadol. At a certain point, he feels like, no, I can answer it. It happened like that. Believe me, he did not mean to say that he's an Adam Gadol. He was talking about this progression, so not to see that you've hit a progression when you have is a problem. Okay. Yes, Aaron.
So how do we discern within ourselves when we've crossed that threshold? Obviously, it's case sensitive. It doesn't mean like I've
Right,
graduated and now I can answer every shaila in the world. It's obviously
right,
relative to
right,
each category of
right.
life.
It's a good question. I'm
Um,
not sure I have the formula, but I think it's like Rabbi Yaakov said. Like I think he was saying, like sometimes you wake up. Look, you have to always be honest. You have to always be ready to say I don't know. And believe me, sometimes I don't like saying I don't know because I'm a Rosh Hashiva. Guys ask me questions. I'd like to answer things like that. So halacha lamaisa, right? I try to avoid halacha lamaisa questions often because I forget a detail here, I forget a detail there, and you're in yeshiva shop. Someone needs to know. So the things you have to make sure your midas are clean. I'm not doing because of covet. But if you think you know, you know. Like, I think the only thing I can say is case sensitive. There are things that are pikuach nefesh. Rav Leichter, here's a good example. Rav Leichter felt he wanted to kick a guy out of yeshiva. This is a great example. But he felt he had to hear Revolba's opinion, his Rabbi Revolba, before he kicked the guy. He did something as severe and as weighty as kicking a guy out of yeshiva. But he told Revolba, he says, I'm speaking to the Mashkiach, but it's my decision. That's a beautiful example. Meaning, I have to hear what you have to say. I can't kick a guy out without turning to my Rabbi, but it's not your decision, my decision, my achrayas. So there you feel the tension. So why asking Revolba? Because I had to hear it, another side. I have to hear it. So there's this tension. We're gonna make the tension more in a second as we swing the avoda, but I don't have a clear I know myself there are things that I know. I think here's what I'm searching for myself, and maybe that's helpful. I know there are things that I have to tell people I don't know. I know there are things that I do know, and I can't start a whole cycle of going to Rav Asher, going to Rabbi, going to this. I don't have the time. The Talmud doesn't have the time. I'm also breaking the relationship. And if I can answer, someone should see that I can answer. This fellow reached out to me maybe after 12, 10 years I haven't spoken to him. For whatever reason, he's somewhere in mid-America. He needed an eight. So if I just tell him, okay, well, I'll wait till I get back to America till I get Rabbi Yaakov on the phone, ask him the question. It's a weighty question. I thought I had the answer. So it's hard to know. You have to Midas have to be clean. No gaiva, no gaiva, no covered, none of that. But within that, if you think you know, you know, And then sometimes the question is weighty enough that even if you think you know, you have to hear another opinion. What I would say. Sometimes you don't know. Sometimes if I could see three categories, sometimes you really don't know. Sometimes you do know. Sometimes you know, but you still need another opinion. Uh, and that's like Reflector's example being an amazing example of that. I know that I want to kick the guy out. I know it's my opinion. I have to hear a Volba, but at the end of the day, it's my opinion to do what I think I have to do. So friends, if we spoke a lot about Roas and Olad, right? Our general topic here is what does it mean to be a Chacham? We spoke about Chacham Chazal. Tell us part of Chachma is to be Roas and Olad. Another part of Chachma is to be Lomi Mikol Adam, which we spoke about in so many different levels about that, Lomi Mikol Adam. And I found another gra brought down about another level of being a Chacham, which I want to share. It's Mishlei Tesvav Yud Beis, which really contrasts to what we've spoken about in an interesting way. But hopefully everything together will give us the picture. Hold on one second. Where is it? Beis Tesvav. It's Mishlei Yud Beis Tesvav. Pasuk says, Derech Evil Yashar Beinav. The way of a fool is straight in his eyes. V'shomeh le'etz Chacham. The one who hears the eitz is a Chacham. So listen to the Gross. The Gross says, She'avil hu muvuhal. He's mixed up. The Avil is muvuhal. He's Bahala. Masha Ola Libo Yashmena. Whatever comes up, he thinks that's the right way to go. Beno Shomei Leitzi, he doesn't hear Eitzah. Aval Chacham Shomei Eitzah. The Chacham hears counsel from others. Beno Shum Davar Im Ena Misyashiv Davar. He doesn't do anything without thinking it through and making sure he's living with wisdom. V'shoa Leitzah Mi Chacham Acher. He asks Chacham to another Chacham. Beno Somech Al Atzmo. Very no get what we were just speaking about. He's not Somech on himself. Ki machshavas adam atzor rak ra kol yom. Machshavas of a person himself are bad the whole day. V'yetze lev adam raman urav. L'chein hu shomeh eitzah michacham. Meaning he has a healthy self-doubt that maybe there's some yetzahar involved in my decision here, right? Ki machshavas adam rak atzor rak ra kol yom. V'yetze lev adam raman urav. The yetzer is bad, and machshavas adam atzor rak ra kol yom. Therefore, he asks eitzah. Now he says a little bit, I'm going to skip. So he says that by the Evil, it talks about his eyes, and by the Chacham, it talks about his listening. Now listen to this. V'tov lios minimekablim milio minimashpiyim. It's better to be from those who are makabel than to be mashpia, to give over. As we said earlier. Many don't know this. This is the Pshat in this Mishnah, friends. Right? So people think that means like, it's good to be, the worst person on the team as opposed to the best. The Rambam says in Perish Mishnayos, and the Gra is learning that also means to continue being a Talmud. What does it mean to be a zon of larayas? Be a tail to lions as opposed to being a head of foxes, right? Head of foxes means like you're a Rebbe. And a tail is to be a tail arayis, means to stay being a makabel. Wow, incredible. So the evil, the foolish person wants to be mashpia, wants to be a rebbe. The chacham wants to be makabel. Incredible. So there are two things in this Gra that I want to point out. That the Chacham, now again, why am I talking about this? Because we're looking about definitions for a Chacham. So we had Chazal's definitions. We're not necessarily finished with that. Chazal also says some other things, but I saw this Gra recently. I thought it'd be interesting to work on together. That the Amida of a Chacham is that he's Shamei Le'etza, but the Gra takes it a step deeper. The Midah of a Chacham is that he wants to be Makabel. And a non-Chacham wants to give over. Now, that's really interesting, right? But that's what the Gra says. So you have to know that it's a big thing to be a Talmud. People ask me sometimes, like, what do you miss? I could have said this before, but I don't like saying this publicly so much. But he asked me, like, one of the things I miss about Aish the most is because I had a mentor there, Rabbi Kirschenbaum. That's really one of the things I miss the most. I miss some other aspects also, but I'm happy where I am, Baruch Hashem. But one thing I miss is like then I had a mentor, and now I don't have a daily mentor around. So I like being makabel. I like to say over also for sure, but I appreciate the chance to be makabel. When I can hear a good drasha, I like that. I wish I was in that situation more. The incredible thing, the Adaris was named Yosef David Rabinovich Tuumim. Eliyahu David Rabinovich Tuumim. He was the Rabbi Yerushalayim. He was a cook's father-in-law. He was a Gaon Atzim. He had more than 100 chiburim. A Gaon Sheba Gaon Imam. She was the Rabbi Yerushalayim, which is one of the most coveted positions in the whole rabbinic world. Didn't work out for him so well. He was rough for a short time, and he passed away. He had a whole thing. He told Rav Cook that don't let them make a big deal about you because he thinks part of the reason it didn't work out. Something didn't work out is because he had too much. There's too much. We call it like a taram. There's too much activity around his becoming the Rav. Like people want attention all the time. So he said he got too much attention. He felt that it hurt him. I think spiritually, I don't think he meant his midas. I think he meant like the Siyat Dishmai or something. But anyway, so he told Rav Kook, if you become a Rav in Yafa, don't let them make a big deal about it. Don't keep it all tsanua. So, but anyway, so Deret wrote about himself, Eliyahu David, Aleph Daled, Rabinovich Tuumim. Aderet. The Aderet said, that was a Rosh Tevis of his name, that he has a strong desire to be Mishamish Chachamim. I think he's probably like 50 or 60. He's probably one of the Gedolim already. And he wanted to be Mishamish. So that's a position a person has to want to be in. But what I want to say over here, both say, that's part of being a Chacham, So I have to think about it more. What's the point? Why is that a Chacham? So I think we can understand this simple way. A Chacham wants to build on his Chacham all the time. It could be there's a lot of depth here. But a sign of a Chacham is you're going to ask for counsel. Why? Let's take it simply. Because a Chacham wants to be right? A Chacham wants to do what's right. He wants to do what's wise. Now, if I know that part of being wise is it's a very real, it's a sharp term from what we were talking about before. But part of being wise is to make the right decisions, to know. So now I know they have to ask Eitzah sometimes, right? So my gaiva or whatever tell me like you know everything on your own. But Shomea le'etza chacham. Be after your eitz, after your counsel. You have to know sometimes you don't know. And your drive to do what's wise pushes away your gaiva, and therefore you shomea eitza. And not only that, the Gra is saying that you want to be makabel, right? Because I know there's a world of wisdom out there. I know that me, myself, again, the Gra is not talking to a foolish person. It's not that I just started yeshiva, I know nothing, I don't know Hebrew, I need a Rebbe. The Mishle is talking to a high-level person. You're a high-level person, like that Deret. You're a high-level person. Talmidi, by the way, the Talmidim of Rabbi Salanta, when they came to Eretz Yisrael, they went to Rabbi Shmuel Salanta. They also said, we need a new Rebbe. They asked them for advice. That means, it's like Blazer, the famous picture of the Yitzchak Blazer by what's called Chutzner Strauss, which exists. We know which steps they are. My friend Moshe Friedman has a yeshiva there. We know where it was. This is where the picture was taken. We know exactly where the picture was taken. So the famous picture of it's a blazer. He was already Gaoni Hador, and he had Rabbi Yisrael Salanter was his Rebbe. He couldn't have a better Rebbe than Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. But now I'm in Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Yisrael is dead. I need a new Rebbe. That's the point. Why? What you don't have confidence? No, I'm a shomel. I'm shomel Eizehu Chacham. A Chacham. The Chacham wants to build on his wisdom, and I know a big part of building on the wisdom is to hear from others. Yeah, it's an incredible idea. I want to be makabel. I want to be a zon of larayis. I want to be makabel. Of course, you have to be mashpia. Then let's talk about for a second, just to highlight this, where things get messed up today. You can have someone who was in yeshiva for 3 years, 4 years, And now he's an influencer and he's putting his videos out all the time. He's on Torah Anytime, etc., which is very good. He's Mimazaka Rab, he has to do that. But if he doesn't perceive that he still has to be Makabel, it's very, very dangerous and it's very, very lacking. Baruch Hashem, so you have a following, maybe a lot of followers, maybe you're very popular, getting thousands of hours of hits or who knows what. But still, you have to be Makabel. You need Rabbeim. Not because Gaiva. It's not Chachamadik. It's not Chachamdik to be just out there on your own. You need to Makabel. Incredible. Shomea le'etza Chacham. So we learned a new thing in the Gra. The definition of a Chacham, at least part of the definition of Chacham, is your Shomea Eitza. That I hear counsel and I continue to be Makabel. I continue to gain from others. A Chacham wants to hear from others, right? Even though Chacham have a lot to say. They have a lot of Torah of their own, and they want to give over. There's time to give over, definitely. But it's kind of like maybe a sniff of lo, maybe kol adam. Maybe that's where we put it. Shomei lechacham, shomei le'etze chacham. The chacham wants to keep steiging, wants to keep learning, wants to keep growing, wants to keep hearing eitzah from others, and that's what it's about. So now, what do we do with this Rabosai? So I think this I want to work with this, and this week I want to, as often we do. I think the first week has to be a week of self-evaluation a little bit. So here's some 4 questions. Do we ask enough Eitzah? Do you ask enough Eitzah? All of us, each person, we're different people, different stage of life. Do I ask Eitzah? Do I check myself? Again, it's a sharp turn from where we started, right? Because you have to know, just to no one gets confused. What's this guy's Schoonmaker's all mixed up? No, there are times when you have to be able to answer, and that sources you, etc. Now, there's another part of the picture, right? Of do I ask enough Eitzah? Right? What areas, yeah, what areas, no. Where do I ask Eitzah, where do I not ask Eitzah? Why don't I ask Eitzah? I want self-reflection, right? What would it take for me to be showing Eitzah more? Who do we ask Eitzah from? Those are some issues which come up, right? So it's a big topic of Eitzah. It's part of Chachma. That's what we're learning here. A Chacham is somebody who asks Eitzah. If you're not asking Eitzah, if you're not asking counsel, right? If you're an onus, you're an onus. Okay, that's not a steer. But if you're not an onus, you have to be asking Eitzah. So those are some areas I want everybody to spend the week, thinking about it. These are some areas to think about. Do I ask Eitzah at all? Do I ask enough Eitzah? What areas do I ask Eitzah? What areas don't I ask Eitzah? What would it take for me to be Shol Eitzah more? Right? Is it my gaiva that's holding me back? Is it situational that's holding me back? Etc. Who do we ask Eitzah from? Will I only ask Eitzah from the smartest person in the generation? All those things and more I want everybody to think about. Okay, I think it's a good avoda. I'm excited. We see from the Pasuk and Mishnah and the Gra that it's part of the picture. So it's definitely something we got to do. And Bezrat Hashem will grow in this area to another aspect of being a Chacham. Okay? Very good. Okay, have a great week, everybody. See you next week. Shalom, shalom.
Sure.
I'll see you next week.